Chapter 291. Lu Ruyu injured. Because the peak masters were normally at least peak medial grade martial kings, regular disciples could not defeat them. Only a demonic level genius had any possibility of victory. It was very rare that anyone would succeed in the challenge. Lu Ruyu was the only exception. She had inherited the peak master position early because of her father's special circumstances. Lu Sufeng said, "This is also why my sis has been cultivating so frantically. In the past few years, she received 3 challenges and successfully defeated her opponents. However, Murong Chong unexpectedly challenged her this time." Xiao Chen frowned and asked, "Is Murong Chong strong? With Lu Ruyu's strength, is she not his match?" Lu Sufeng said sullenly, "He is very strong. When he left Qingyan Peak 3 years ago, he lost to my sis by 1 move. Now that 3 years have passed, my sis no longer has the confidence to win." Xiao Chen said doubtfully, "Elder sister Ruyu is injured. Doesn't that mean Murong Chong wins by default?" Lu Sufeng glanced at Xiao Chen and said, "No. According to tradition, if the master is injured, the disciple will replace the master. Hence, the job of protecting Qingyan Peak will fall to you." When Xiao Chen heard this, he was mildly stunned. However, he was not surprised. He finally understood why those disciples had such a big reaction when they saw him. However, in all honesty, Xiao Chen was not confident in dealing with Murong Chong either. When Murong Chong executed the clear wind chop outside the sect, there were clearly some improvements. His comprehension of the state of wind was far beyond Xiao Chen's. Xiao Chen got up and said, "Never mind. Let's not think of all this. I'll go take a look at elder sister Ruyu first." There was no point in overthinking. It was better for Xiao Chen to investigate Lu Ruyu's injury before deciding what to do. Lu Sufeng stopped Xiao Chen and said, "You should go a bit later. She just fell asleep. She has not eaten much in the past few days. We should let her rest for now." When Xiao Chen heard this, he felt a pang in his heart. He silently nodded. After Lu Sufeng left, he dealt with his own injuries thoroughly and sat down to try recovering to his peak state. However, regardless of what he did, he was unable to calm himself. If he continued in such a way, he would end up in berserking qi deviation. Xiao Chen could only helplessly stop cultivating and sit in the courtyard alone. Within the huge courtyard, Xiao Chen took out the tendon refining flower from his universe ring. He smiled faintly. This all mysteriously seemed like the will of heaven. Xiao Chen had just obtained the tendon refining flower in the Devil Savannah. Before he had the chance to use it for himself, he obtained news of Lu Ruyu's meridians having been broken. Was it really coincidental? However, there were certain situations that the tendon refining flower could not treat. For example, if the 9 major meridians in the body were severed, even if a deity came, he would be unable to do anything. Lu Sufeng had left urgently. He had not pondered this problem earlier. At that moment, Xiao Chen could not help but be overcome by anxiety. This must be the reason he was unable to calm down completely. As the sun set, Xiao Chen sat at the stone table and pondered. Why do I care so much for Lu Ruyu, even to the point where I felt unease while I was at the Devil Savannah, thousands of kilometers away from the Heavenly Saber Pavilion? What exactly is the reason? Xiao Chen's expression was puzzled as he gazed at the distant red clouds. Never mind. There is no need to think about it. Xiao Chen shook his head and sighed. The problems that cannot be solved should be left alone. Someday, I will understand it naturally. Xiao Chen's way was not to waste time on insoluble problems. However, even though he told himself not to think, his mind was still in chaos. He was unable to calm down. The resoluteness and peace he had in the past were now completely gone. Xiao Chen simply sat at the stone table as night slowly took over. Finally, Xiao Chen could no longer endure. He pushed his feet off the ground and leapt over the walls, heading quickly to Lu Ruyu's courtyard. With the illumination of the moonlight, Xiao Chen soon arrived in Lu Ruyu's courtyard. He hesitated for a while at the gates before pushing them open and entering. Yi Chen, when did you return? Just as Xiao Chen stepped through the gates, he saw Lu Ruyu in the courtyard. She wore a white dress and rested at the table in the courtyard. Her expression was obviously anxious, but when she saw Xiao Chen, her pale face revealed a faint smile. The moonlight shone on Lu Ruyu's delicate figures. The combination of her white dress and somewhat pale complexion made her originally graceful temperament seem extremely delicate. This was the first time Xiao Chen had ever seen Lu Ruyu wear a dress. In the past, every time he saw her, she wore female cultivator robes. Lu Ruyu's normal graceful exterior gave one a strong, decisive feeling. Like there were no problems too difficult for her, like she would be forever filled with passion. The difference was so great, Xiao Chen felt somewhat uncomfortable. For a moment, he forgot his purpose in coming here. He did not know what to say. Yi Chen, are you injured? When Lu Ruyu saw Xiao Chen standing outside, her expression suddenly changed. She stood and moved to Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen recovered his wits and quickly responded, just a small injury, there are no problems. Lu Ruyu's expression became sullen, and she said, don't lie to me. Although I no longer have my cultivation, I still can tell. Let me see. Xiao Chen felt embarrassed, and he quickly moved back, it's really nothing. Elder sister Ruyu, let me take a look at your injuries first. Lu Ruyu placed her hand on Xiao Chen's chest and felt the position of his wound in an instant. Her expression changed, and she said, the wound is just 6.6 millimeters away from your heart. If it were slightly closer, you would have died. How is this a small wound? Who caused it? Xiao Chen smiled. Naturally, he could not tell Lu Ruyu the truth. He said, it was the bandits of the Devil Savannah. However, I have always been very lucky. I will not die so easily. Xiao Chen walked behind Lu Ruyu and placed his right hand on her shoulder. Lu Ruyu trembled slightly but calmed quickly. Xiao Chen's essence slowly entered Lu Ruyu's body via his right hand. Then, his essence circulated in Lu Ruyu's 9 major meridians for a cycle. After that, Xiao Chen let go, and he breathed a sigh of relief. Lu Ruyu turned around and smiled faintly, I am now a cripple. I can no longer guide you. Xiao Chen shook his head. He took out the tendon refining flower from his universe ring and said, that might not be so. Take a look at this. Tendon refining flower. Lu Ruyu's face filled with shock. Where did you get this? One must know that injuries to the meridians were the most difficult to treat. Usually, when meridians were damaged, it took a long time of nurturing to treat them. Furthermore, in cases like Lu Ruyu's, where the meridians were severed, aside from some immortal grade herbs, ordinary pills that treated the meridians would have no effect. However, immortal grade herbs could only be found and not sought. At this moment, the only thing that could help her was this tendon refining flower. However, although the grade of the tendon refining flower was not high, it was extremely rare. It also took a long time to mature. Even if it appeared in an auction, it would be immensely difficult to obtain. This was because it would be snapped up in a jiffy. Hence, Lu Ruyu was astonished Xiao Chen managed to obtain it. Xiao Chen did not answer her question. He smiled gently and said, your 9 major meridians are not injured. With this tendon refining flower, you should be able to recover in a month. Furthermore, the toughness of your meridians will improve. Lu Ruyu received the tendon refining flower and revealed a joyful expression. However, she immediately saddened. She said, 1 month, there is no way to make it in time for the fight with Murong Chong. It is still too late in the end. Xiao Chen smiled and asked, "Do you not believe in my strength?" When Lu Ruyu heard this, she was mildly stunned. She remembered when she first met Xiao Chen, she could easily defeat him. However, after a significant portion of the year, Xiao Chen had advanced from martial Grand Master to medial grade martial saint. Furthermore, his combat prowess was not inferior to that of an inferior grade martial king. Such talent was not inferior to Morong Chong's. Unfortunately, he was still slower by a step. He did not have enough time to mature. Furthermore, the fight between them would not be a regular duel, it was a life or death battle. Lu Ruyu was very clear on Morong Chong's character. He definitely would not leave any loose ends. Xiao Chen was in dire danger. Just recuperate in peace. Regardless of the situation, I will help you to protect Qingyan Peak, for I am from Qingyan Peak as well. I shall take my leave, Xiao Chen said with a serious expression. After Xiao Chen spoke, he turned to depart. Just as he was about to step through the gates, Lu Ruyu said softly, "Yi Chen, thank you." Xiao Chen paused for a moment, and a gentle smile appeared on his face. Then, he increased his speed and quickly left this place. When Xiao Chen returned to his courtyard, he sat on his bed in a cross-legged fashion. Then, he immediately circulated his energy to treat his injuries. This time, Xiao Chen was as calm as still water, there were no ripples in his mind at all. His mind was completely clear. He slowly circulated his essence and nourished the wound on this chest repeatedly. Xiao Chen's physical body was very strong. After several temperings and the aid of the 7-leaf flower, his recovery abilities reached an impressive level. The sword had not completely pierced through Xiao Chen's chest. With some time, after he calmed down, it would not take more than 24 hours to repair most of the damage. 2 days later, Xiao Chen's wound had healed completely. In the meantime, Lu Sufeng came over and brought a plethora of healing medicine from the Jade Maiden Peak. Xiao Chen did not know whether to laugh or cry at this. Actually, his injury was not serious. He had only almost injured the heart. However, the key word here was, almost. He did not receive any serious damage. He just needed to circulate his essence for a period, and he would recover. There was no need for so much medicine. After staying in for 2 days, Xiao Chen got up and pushed open his door. The sunlight shone on his face, and fresh air entered his nose. He felt utterly refreshed and much more relaxed. The 15th, there is still another week. Morong Chong is already aware of most of my trump cards. Furthermore, I am still not aware of many of his. I have to learn the 3 sure kill techniques of the Wukui Saber technique and use them to create new trump cards. Otherwise, there will be no chance at victory. I can also make some changes to the rushing thunder roars. If I turned the martial technique for dealing with groups into a single target one, it could become a trump card as well. Xiao Chen muttered to himself as he looked into the distance, watching the sunlight adorn the sky. Once Xiao Chen made up his mind, he started on it. Xiao Chen walked past the walls of his courtyard and headed for the back mountains of Qingyan Peak. There were not many people on Qingyan Peak, hence, the vast back mountain was quiet and tranquil, it was perfectly suitable for Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen arrived at a clear area and practiced the first 3 moves of the Wukui Saber technique first. Glittering Wukui. The saber flashed in the air 9 times, and 9 Wukui tree branches appeared immediately. The tree branches moved through the air chaotically at lightning speed. They tore through space and left afterimages as they did so. Xiao Chen withdrew his saber and stopped. He felt satisfied. The 3 foundational moves were already approaching great perfection. He was now able to send out 9 relatively dense saber chi simultaneously. The quality of a martial saint's saber chi was significantly inferior to a martial king. However, Xiao Chen had the glittering Wukui. The saber chi formed from the tree branch was not inferior to that of a martial king. Hence, such a weakness could be considered remedied. Furthermore, this move exhausted relatively little essence. Xiao Chen could practically execute it endlessly. It could last until all his essence dried up and was no different from saber chi. Regarding quality of saber chi, Xiao Chen had an advantage over Murong Chong. Although it was not a big advantage, it would still contribute a little to his odds of victory. Xiao Chen finally practiced the 3 foundational moves. Then, he started practicing the 3 killing moves: Wukui shakes the heavens, Wukui blossoms, and Wukui supporting the heavens. Of the 3 killing moves, Wukui supporting the heavens was a standalone move. As for Wukui shakes the heavens and Wukui blossoms, they had to be chained together to release their greatest might. After Xiao Chen finished practicing the 3 killing moves, the ground was gorged out everywhere. Purple electricity lingered in the air. He stopped moving and rested for a while after that. Wukui breaks the heavens. Xiao Chen shouted and followed the circulation method for the Wukui saber technique, trying to execute the 7th move. The ancient divine tree slowly began growing above him, starting at its roots. However, before it could complete its growth, a saber light appeared on his saber and extended out at least 100 meters. Little surprise appeared on Xiao Chen's face. He said softly, "I released it too early. I did not time it properly with the circulation of essence." Again. Boom. It failed the 2nd time. Like before, the saber chi only extended by about 100 meters before disappearing. Its might was not even comparable to glittering Wukui. 3rd time. Failed. 4th time. Failed. 5th time. Failed again. Xiao Chen had lost track of how many times he failed, but he did not show any signs of discouragement. Every time he failed, he tried and consolidated the reason he failed before trying again. The might of the killing moves in the Wukui saber technique were already intensely ferocious. They could kill an inferior grade martial king. Xiao Chen believed that the sure kill moves would be even more ferocious. A regular peak inferior grade martial king might not be able to survive it. Hence, it was normal for it to be difficult to learn. Fortunately, Xiao Chen's threshold for enduring loneliness was very high. Even after experiencing failure after failure, he was not frustrated in the least. Hu Kai. The Wukui tree above him had already grown to a near-perfect level. However, the saber light appeared ahead of time. This time, it extended out 500 meters. Xiao Chen wiped the sweat from his forehead and encouraged himself, "It's not bad already. I am just a short distance from success. Time to continue." After practicing for so long, Xiao Chen had a slight understanding of the profoundness of the Wukui breaks the heavens. The key points of this move were the mysterious phenomenon, the circulation of essence, and the timing of the release. The 3 factors had to be completed at the same time to execute this move fully. The so-called mysterious phenomenon naturally referred to the Wukui tree above him. The other 2 factors were easy to understand but difficult to accomplish. As of now, Xiao Chen already had a complete grasp on the manifestation of mysterious phenomenon. He could almost control the speed of essence circulation as he willed. The only thing he could not control was the timing of the release. Unknowingly, the sky had grown dark. Xiao Chen continued to practice this move without being discouraged. Wukui breaks the heavens. Xiao Chen shouted, and the ancient divine Wukui tree formed slowly. The instant the Wukui tree completed its formation, a resplendent saber light appeared on his lunar shadow saber and lit up the night sky. The saber light grew longer quickly. Within a breath's time, it extended by 1,000 meters and reached a cliffside. There was a loud boom, and a seemingly endless deep hole appeared. Rocks crashed down unceasingly. "I finally succeeded." Xiao Chen revealed a joyous expression. Everything came to him who was patient. He finally grasped this move. The next step would be to try merging in the state of thunder. Only by truly merging the state of thunder could one completely release the might of the martial technique. Dark clouds churned in the sky, a boundless low rumble of thunder resounded relentlessly. Occasionally, slender bolts of lightning tore through the sky, lighting up the ground. Xiao Chen had a calm expression as his right hand grasped the saber hilt. The state of thunder gathered continuously. The roar of the thunder in the sky became louder as time passed. It was like a huge army galloping and shouting angrily. The boundless sound reverberated in the back mountains. A visible purple wind blew through the air, giving off non-stop, zzz, sounds. Wukui breaks the heavens. Xiao Chen shouted, and the ancient divine Wukui tree grew quickly above his head. When the Wukui tree's growth halted, Xiao Chen moved his right hand. Pu Si. The resplendent light pillar appeared on the snow-white saber. The continuous rumble of thunder in the air immediately stopped. However, it only stayed quiet for about half a second. Then, a startling thunder roared. A horrifying bolt of purple lightning tore through the dark clouds in the sky, moving through the night sky. It was like a roaring berserk dragon descending from the sky. At that moment, Xiao Chen's aura raised to the peak. It was like a treasured saber drawing out of the scabbard, its brilliance revealed, shining in every direction. It was eye-catching, like a sharp blade breaking through the air. Rumble. The state and the saber techniques merged seamlessly. The pillar of light on the saber blade extended quickly. All this happened in the blink of an eye. When a small peak, about 1,000 meters ahead, was struck by the light pillar, it shattered. Rocks tumbled from the height, nothing but rubble. The rocks that came in contact with the light pillar turned to dust and scattered with the wind, completely disappearing. Dang! Xiao Chen returned his saber to the scabbard, and the thunder clouds in the sky immediately disappeared. The rumble of thunder stopped, and the night grew quiet once more. Only the sound of rocks falling remained. Xiao Chen revealed a joyful expression. He muttered, "After 2 days, I finally perfectly merged my state of thunder with the Wukui breaks the heavens. This move is sufficient for me to show disdain for the martial saint cultivators. Regarding might, it is only slightly shy of an inferior grade heaven-ranked martial technique." Xiao Chen sat cross-legged where he was. He took out a medial grade spirit stone and quickly recovered his essence. After a while, he completely replenished his exhausted essence. Furthermore, some spiritual energy in the medial grade spirit stone remained. Xiao Chen took advantage of this opportunity and entered a state of cultivation. Xiao Chen sent the remaining spiritual energy in the medial grade spirit stone into the Qi whirlpool at his dantian. When he exhausted the spirit stone, the Qi whirlpool spun and increased in size slightly. His essence capacity had increased again. Xiao Chen was not in a rush to get up. Instead, he continued to circulate the purple thunder divine incantation and infused this energy he just absorbed into his body, turning it into part of his cultivation. After the purple thunder divine incantation circulated for a great cycle, Xiao Chen immediately opened his eyes, and a purple light flashed in his pupils. Xiao Chen got up and looked at the distant horizon. A faint light began to appear, dawn was arriving. He said, "After the sky turns bright, I only have 5 days left. The Wukui breaks the heavens has only just merged with the state of thunder, that means that I actually only have 4 days left. Out of the 4 days, I will use 3 to practice the 8th move of the Wukui saber technique. The remaining day will be used to consolidate and altering the rushing thunder roars. This way, I will have 3 trump cards." After Xiao Chen retrieved some dry rations from the universe ring and ate, he continued to familiarize himself with merging the Wukui breaks the heavens and the state of thunder. The outline of the vast Lingyun mountain range rose up and down. It was unknown how vast it was exactly, there were many desolate peaks. Morong Chong stood on this particular quiet peak. This peak was utterly bare, there was no vegetation at all. Only stones filled this place. It climbed about 2,000 meters high, the wind blew wildly. This caused Morong Chong's clothes to flutter uncontrollably. Shoo! Morong Chong suddenly opened his eyes, and a reserved light appeared in their depths. Suddenly, his hair stopped fluttering around. The wind seemed like it was passing through him, he had merged with the wind itself. My state of wind has finally reached great perfection. I can break the sound barrier now. This way, I have a 70% chance of dodging that move of his. Morong Chong spoke to himself. Then, his body suddenly flashed in the direction of the wind. As he moved, he made no sound. In the blink of an eye, he had traveled 500 meters. Morong Chong's figure flickered non-stop as he moved towards the foot of the mountain. Up in the sky, layers of clouds slowly churned in the previously clear sky. The clouds in the sky seemed to be directed by a mysterious force. They started to crash into each other at a fast speed. When the clouds crashed into each other, thunder crackled in the sky. Pu Si. Morong Chong drew his saber, and a bolt of lightning descended. Before the bolt of lightning landed on the ground, a strong wind blew. The lightning immediately merged into the strong wind, and the strong wind instantly turned purple, forming a purple tornado. Electricity flickered on the wind, and thunder roared. Morong Chong leapt into the air, his figure seeming ethereal and formless, like a cloud on the passing wind. The purple tornado followed after him, moving up and down. Everywhere it passed, the purple tornado blasted countless large stones into powder. They turned into dust and scattered with the wind. Dust filled the place with a yellow cloud. Chasing cloud pursuing lightning. Morong Chong, who moved through the air without a fixed pattern, shouted. The purple tornado changed and transformed into a flickering purple flood dragon. It moved in the direction his saber light pointed. Its speed was incredibly fast, it was almost the speed of sound. The flood dragon, formed by the clouds, wind, and electricity, crashed into a peak. The summit of the peak immediately shattered and turned into powder. Parting clouds revealing sky. Morong Chong shouted again and landed on the ground. A resplendent light appeared on his saber blade. In an instant, it grew infinitely, surging into the sky. The saber light instantly separated the churning clouds. The bright sun was revealed, burning even brighter than before, rebuking heaven and earth. Suddenly, Morong Chong shouted and the saber, gleaming with a cold light, vibrated relentlessly. A strong wind blew behind Morong Chong, kicking up dust. Up in the sky, the clouds churned, moving continuously. They seemed to span unbroken in the sky for at least 108,000 meters. For a moment, there were rising winds and scudding clouds, the sky seemed to have changed color. Morong Chong's aura rushed to the sky. Within this space, he seemed like a ruler. He was like an exceptionally treasured saber standing there, it felt as if he could even pierce the sky. When the saber swung, a cold and sharp saber light lit up. The wind immediately ceased, and the clouds froze. Within that space, only the saber light remained resplendent. Morong Chong's wrist dropped downward, and the saber light left the saber, turning into a surging saber chi heading for the ground violently. A 10 meters wide and 33 meters deep hole gouged into the ground. The saber chi was like a pillar. It flew 5,000 meters before it stopped. With one glance, the 5,000 meters pit seemed endless. There were remnants of the state of wind and clouds lingering to the sides. It did not dissipate for quite a while. Dust left the ground and filled the air, dancing chaotically. Dang! Morong Chong withdrew his saber and stood upright as he looked at the endless cloud of dust and the horrifying gorge. His face was still expressionless as he said indifferently, Lu Ruyu will definitely tell Yi Chen about the 9 secret techniques of Qingyan Peak. They cannot be my true trump cards. Only this great perfection state of cloud and my self-created 3 weather styles can be my true trump cards. Now that the state of wind has reached great perfection, and the state of wind and the state of cloud merged perfectly together, no one under Martial King is my match. The sun rose and set, the clouds gathered and scattered. 5 days flew by just like that. The 8th move of the Wukui saber technique was harder to learn than Xiao Chen originally expected. He spent a total of 3.5 days before completely learning it. Then he merged it with the state of thunder. Instead, the alteration of the rushing thunder roars was easier than expected. Xiao Chen had already become intimately familiar with this move in the Devil Savannah. There was not much that needed to be changed when converting it from a group attack to a single target attack. For Xiao Chen, who had consumed the flowing light flower, it was not difficult. Xiao Chen watched the setting sun on the horizon and sheathed his saber, beginning his journey back. He executed the Azure Dragon cloud soaring art and transformed into a streak of purple light, flickering as he moved. In less than the time for half a joss stick to burn, Xiao Chen returned to his courtyard. He discovered the Lu siblings and Xiao Bai, who had been running wild the past few days, waiting for him there. TL note: the time it takes for a joss stick to burn is dependent on the type of joss stick. But for time usage, the ancient Chinese understood one joss stick to be 30 minutes. Xiao Chen leapt over the walls and landed firmly on the ground. He smiled and inquired, "Why are you all here?" Lu Sufeng smiled, "I'm here to cheer you on before the fight. I will take my leave first. My sis will give you some information on Morong Chong. I hope it will be useful to you." After taking the tendon refining flower, Lu Ruyu's complexion looked rosier. She did not seem as weak as she had been. She wore tight cultivator's robes once again. After Lu Sufeng left, Lu Ruyu inspected Xiao Chen carefully. She discovered that his aura was stronger than it was 5 days ago. There was a great improvement in his strength. "Come to the dueling grounds with me." Lu Ruyu's lips parted slightly as she said softly. Xiao Chen nodded and followed Lu Ruyu. They gradually made their way to the dueling grounds. The two of them stood across from each other, separated by about 5 meters. Lu Ruyu said, "Before Morong Chong left Qingyan Peak, he was only slightly weaker than me. Now that 3 years have passed, his strength will have only become more terrifying. I will tell you everything I know. Firstly is the Qingyan Peak's 9 secret techniques. He had learned 4 of them. They are Profound Wind Chop, Peerless Lunar Shadow, Clear Wind Chop, and Flickering Light Passing Shadows. You should already be very quite familiar with the Profound Wind Chop and the Clear Wind Chop. I will demonstrate to you the Peerless Lunar Shadow and the Flickering Light Passing Shadows." Xiao Chen quickly said, "Elder Sister Ruyu, you can just explain them to me. Your meridians have just recovered. It is best if you don't circulate your essence." Lu Ruyu revealed a smile on her graceful face as she said, "It's fine. I know my limits. Watch carefully, this is the Peerless Lunar Shadow. Ka-ca." Lu Ruyu immediately drew her small saber, and it gave off a sharp and cold saber light. 2 crescent moon-shaped scarlet saber chi appeared. Following Lu Ruyu's movements, the 2 crescent moons moved and connected, forming a full moon behind her. Suddenly, the dueling grounds turned pitch dark. The scarlet moon slowly rose and illuminated the dark space a deep red. Lu Ruyu flew up at the same time as the full moon. The red light shone upon her and made her look strangely beautiful. Lu Ruyu's saber pointed at Xiao Chen, and the aura seemed to have gathered in a spot. Xiao Chen frowned slightly. He could feel a strange pressure on his forehead. He could not control the qi and blood in his entire body, and he grew agitated. He felt a certain unexplainable frustration. What a powerful martial technique. It can actually affect my mental state, Xiao Chen thought to himself. He quickly sank his consciousness down and protected his dantian. Only after that did the unsettling feeling disappear. Dang. Lu Ruyu returned her saber to its scabbard, and the mysterious phenomenon instantly disappeared. Her body gently floated down. When she landed, she fell to one knee and almost toppled over. Xiao Chen was startled and quickly moved to support Lu Ruyu. When he saw her pale complexion, he said, "There is no need to work so hard. Elder sister Ruyu, you just need to explain it to me, there is no need to demonstrate it." Lu Ruyu's pale face revealed a bitter smile. She struggled out of Xiao Chen's grasp and stood stably. She said, "It seems like I'm still overdoing it. I will explain them to you then. Peerless lunar shadow is a mysterious phenomenon created from my own killing chi. This martial technique is an adaptation of the blood shadow chop. The stronger a person's killing chi, the stronger its might will be. When you are facing this move, your heart must be calm. Otherwise, the killing chi will enter your body. This will cause you to lose even the chance to draw your saber." Xiao Chen nodded. "I understand. I felt it earlier. However, I have always had a resolute character. My heart will not be disturbed so easily." Lu Ruyu saw that Xiao Chen seemed slightly careless. Lu Ruyu revealed a serious expression on her pale face as she said, "You cannot be careless." Back then, to practice this move to great perfection, Murong Chong personally slaughtered 50 groups of bandits in the Devil Savannah. Even if the number of bandits did not reach 10,000, there were at least 8,000. His killing chi is extremely horrifying. When Xiao Chen heard this, he was startled. He did not expect Murong Chong to be so cold-blooded. For the sake of one move, he strained his hands with the blood of 10,000 people. However, Xiao Chen remembered that, when he encountered him, he was not leaking any killing chi. If what Lu Ruyu said was true, it went to show that Murong Chong had already reached the point where he could use killing chi as he wished. To control so much killing chi, aside from being strong, there were very high requirements on his temperament, which were even harsher. What kind of person was Murong Chong? He had a horrifying talent, cold-blooded and decisive personality, as well as a resoluteness and incomparable determination. It was hard to point out his flaws. Lu Ruyu continued, "However, you don't have to pay too much attention to this. If you are unable to overcome him in terms of killing chi, you can simply use force to break the mysterious phenomenon in advance. Break it while it is still two separate crescent moons." Xiao Chen was enlightened. That is a way to do it as well. However, my move will have to be very fast, fast enough for him to be unable to react. "Thank you, elder sister Ruyu," Xiao Chen said seriously. Lu Ruyu smiled and continued, "We are now left with flickering light passing shadows. I do not know this move. I only know that it is a cloning martial technique and infuses the state of light. It can create numerous clones that are difficult to differentiate. However, Murong Chong's main focus is the state of wind. He is not likely to have spent too much time practicing this move. It is sufficient for you just to be aware of it." After that, Lu Ruyu told Xiao Chen about Murong Chong's other strengths in detail. The look of worry in her eyes never disappeared. "Remember, do not risk your life at the crucial moment. Life is the most important. To me, even if I keep this Qingyan peak, I will have great regrets if I lose you. So, you must promise me, if you can't win, just admit defeat." Just as Xiao Chen was about to leave, Lu Ruyu spoke very seriously. Only after Xiao Chen agreed did Lu Ruyu reveal a satisfied smile and leave the dueling grounds. The next morning, the dawn peeked through the window and shone into Xiao Chen's room. As Xiao Chen felt the piercing light, he immediately awoke from deep sleep. Since the fight would start soon, he did not cultivate but had a good sleep. So his body, mind, and spirit would all be well rested. After Xiao Chen washed up, he felt extremely refreshed. His entire being, from the interior and exterior of his body, was all in peak condition. Lu Ruyu and Lu Sufeng were already waiting outside his courtyard. After Xiao Chen asked, he discovered that the peak master contention battle would not be held at the familiar heaven viewing platform. Instead, it would be held at the heaven ascending platform that he had been to once. Lu Ruyu waved at the sky, and a massive heavenly wind vulture circled in the air before landing in front of them, causing a strong wind. After the three of them mounted the heavenly wind vulture, the person controlling the heavenly wind vulture shouted. The heavenly wind vulture instantly created a strong berserk wind as it rushed into the air. Unless there were some major matters, there would normally be no one on the heaven ascending platform. However, at the moment, there was an endless stream of people making their way there. The large number of people made it very lively. Up on the platform was a huge dueling ground. Encircling its surroundings were spectator stands. In the middle was a 2,000 meters long and 100 meters wide super arena. No one puzzled at the size of the arena. After all, every peak master contention battle was fought at a martial king's level. A fight on such a level would not be containable with a regular arena. In the arena, Morong Chong stood expressionlessly in a corner with his eyes shut. The densely packed heads could be seen in spectator stands. Furthermore, there were still many cultivators making their way over quickly. It's another peak master contention battle. I did not expect Morong Chong to attack Qingyan Peak like that. Unfortunately, Lu Ruyu is injured. Qingyan Peak will probably fall this time. That might not be so. Yi Chen is also now a super genius who can defeat an expert from the older generation. Regarding talent, he is not inferior to Morong Chong. The odds of victory are probably 50-50. Haha, you are too naive. Morong Chong advanced to peak superior grade martial saint long ago. There were also experts of the older generation who died at his hands as well. Their talent may be at the same level, but regarding cultivation realm, Yi Chen is a tad bit slower. He does not have much chance of victory against Morong Chong. I also agree. Morong Chong's strength has always been stable. Furthermore, he has practiced all of the Qingyan Peak secret techniques that he knows to great perfection. The cultivation techniques and martial techniques he practices are all at the peak of his generation. Furthermore, he has a seemingly flawless character. It is hard to imagine him losing to Yi Chen. However, why is this Yi Chen not here yet? I heard that Morong Chong arrived last night and hadn't left the arena since. Before the fight began, the crowds already intensely discussed the pair. Although most of them favored Morong Chong, they all recognized Xiao Chen's strength. They were all of the opinion that this would not be an easy victory for Morong Chong. This was something that could not have happened in the past. However, recent events proved Xiao Chen's strength. It was not exaggerated but true. Morong Chong paid no attention to the discussions around him. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and looked at a heavenly wind vulture in the sky. He said indifferently, "You're finally here." Xiao Chen looked at Morong Chong, who had arrived at the arena long ago, and he adjusted his mental state. He jumped from the heavenly wind vulture and landed firmly in the arena. Lu Ruyu looked at the two people in the arena. A complicated feeling filled her heart. She muttered in a low voice, "I hope nothing will go wrong." When an old man, a medial grade martial king, saw Xiao Chen land in the arena, he immediately walked out and revealed himself. He was the referee of this fight, and at the same time, he was a member of the Elders' Assembly. The old man waved his hand and signaled for the two of them to retreat about 100 meters. After he waited for a while, he said, "In the peak master contention battle, there has never been any such thing as mercy. However, let me say this first, we are all people of the same sect. If one party admits his defeat, please stop. I shall not speak too much nonsense. The fight begins, the winner will decide the fate of Qingyan Peak." After the old man spoke, he pushed his feet off the ground lightly and quickly left the arena. Mirong Chong and Xiao Cheng were separated by 200 meters. They gazed at each other, their right hands on their saber hilts. They gathered aura relentlessly. At this moment, the originally extremely noisy audience fell completely silent. Countless pairs of eyes stared at the two people in the arena. Hu Kai. A red light flashed in Mirong Chong's eyes, and a suppressing killing chi fired towards Xiao Chen. This killing chi was immensely dense. It parted the air like it was water, then enveloped an area of about 1 meter around Xiao Chen. Countless miserable cries echoed in Xiao Chen's ears. Horrifying illusions appeared before his eyes. These were probably the grievances left behind by the people Mirong Chong had killed. Mirong Chong is indeed able to use his killing chi as he wishes. No. It is not just at that level, it is at a much deeper level than that. He can use his killing chi to wrap around my body without it scattering. This is a very high-level control. Xiao Chen, mildly astonished, still wore a calm expression. There were no changes to his features at all. Xiao Chen concentrated and kept his mind clear. A clear light flashed in his serene eyes. With such a strong spirit protecting his heart, he felt none of the effects of the killing chi. Xiao Chen simply allowed that strong killing chi to surround his body, but his eyes remained impeccable tranquil. Simply guarding his heart allowed those illusions to all vanish without him having to exert effort. Mirong Chong's face was expressionless. When he saw that the killing chi was useless, he decisively withdrew it all. Hoo. Suddenly, a strong wind blew from behind Mirong Chong. Countless particles of dust kicked up, and the wind occasionally howled. Thunderclouds gathered above Xiao Chen's head, churning continuously. The low rumble of thunder rang out endlessly. After the two had gathered their strength for quite some time, they finally unleashed it. They started competing with comprehended states, a berserk state of wind versus a surging state of thunder. For a moment, winds rose and clouds scudded. Dark clouds obscured the sun, and it completely lost its light. The arena was now dark. Furthermore, the dust the strong wind had picked up shrouded the vision of many cultivators, except for some with very good eyesight. For most, they could no longer see the situation. How powerful! They haven't even started fighting yet. Their comparison of states is already so horrifying. It's no wonder they can fight people of higher cultivation realms, killing inferior grade martial kings, someone in the crowd exclaimed. Dang! Instantly, two strands of resplendent saber light shone in the boundless strong wind. The cold, sharp saber lights blew away all the dust in the arena. Each opponent simultaneously sent out a strand of saber chi. The strands met mid-air and generated a surging shockwave in all directions. Mirong Chong was astonished to find that the density of his saber chi was not as dense as Xiao Chen's. Even after crashing into Mirong Chong's saber chi, the purple saber chi still flew quickly at him, albeit weakened. Mirong Chong stomped on the ground and silently stepped forward. He swung his saber and easily shattered the weakened purple saber chi. Then, he rushed Xiao Chen without his speed decreasing. Xiao Chen did not feel afraid. He shouted and likewise rushed forward to welcome Mirong Chong's charge. Dang! 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 The two sabers clashed with each other, and in an instant, the sound of wind, thunder, and metallic clanging merged and reverberated in the air. In the blink of an eye, the two exchanged several dozen moves. When they saw an attack, they dealt with it, not giving the other any advantage. After a while, they both shouted and retreated 100 meters. The aggressive wind scattered, and the dust settled. The scene, at that moment, appeared to everyone, they could finally see again. The two's gazes were like sharp knives having an intense exchange in the air. Xiao Chen grasped the saber tightly with his right hand, maintaining a high alert. This was because the earlier attacks were all probing moves. After this, the right fight would begin. Morong Chong revealed a faint smile on his handsome face. He said, "After not seeing you for 1 month, your improvement of strength has exceeded my expectations. You are now qualified to challenge me. However, that is merely the qualification to challenge me." Qingyan Peak's secret technique, Peerless Lunar Shadow. Morong Chong shouted, and his saber quickly emitted 2 scarlet saber chi resembling crescent moons. The 2 crescent moons moved in 2 beautiful arcs in the air as they fired at Xiao Chen. The saber chi contained boundless killing chi. Everywhere it passed, it left a scarlet shadow behind like fresh blood. Glittering Wukui. As Xiao Chen knew the might of Peerless Lunar Shadow, he did not dare be careless. The snow-white lunar shadow saber trembled 9 times, and the glittering Wukui exhibited to the limits. 9 ancient divine Wukui tree branches turned into dense saber chi and moved like long spears toward the scarlet saber chi in the air. Morong Chong smiled faintly and shook the saber in his hand slightly. The 2 scarlet crescent moons paused in the air. Then they moved strangely, in a semicircle arc. They would meet where Xiao Chen stood. Such a sudden change allowed them to avoid the 9 purple saber chi in the air. Windwalk shoes. Activate. Retreat. The crescent moon's speed reached the speed of sound in an instant. Morong Chong had completely merged his state of wind into them. Xiao Chen did not dare be careless. He activated the windwalk shoes and executed the Azure Dragon Cloud soaring art. He turned into a purple arrow and retreated. Bang! The instant Xiao Chen retreated, the 2 crescent moon met each other with a boom. Then, they formed a scarlet full moon. The horrifying red shockwaves radiated out in the surroundings like waves. Even though Xiao Chen had dodged it in advance, the shockwave of the red moon's speed and might still exceeded Xiao Chen's expectation. The shockwave struck Xiao Chen's body, knocking him several hundred meters. The killing chi infused in the shockwaves howled in his mind. Xiao Chen's chi and blood surged uncontrollably, the resentment built up in his mind. An irresistible desire to kill and frustration arose in his heart. Damn it! Xiao Chen released his pride and circulated his essence to gather the surging chi and blood. Then, he vomited them. The surging chi and blood, as well as the boundless killing chi, vanished. Up, in the spectator stands, Lu Ruyu frowned tightly. Worry filled her graceful face. She did not expect that, when the true exchange started, Xiao Chen would suffer a small disadvantage. Morong Chong's comprehension of the Peerless Lunar Shadow had already reached the peak of consummation, where he could freely control it. After he merged in the berserk state of wind, the might of this move reached a horrifying level. Hu! Morong Chong's body slowly flew into the sky. The moon-shaped saber chi separated and flew to his back once again. The crescent moons merged to form a full moon again. A dark, night scene appeared once more. In an instant, it blocked out the sunlight. It also covered the dark clouds Xiao Chen's state of thunder had created, leaving not a trace behind. The connection with the state of thunder completely broke. Xiao Chen was utterly astonished. He tried a few times but discovered that he was unable to connect to his state of thunder. The cover of night severed him from the outside world. This is the effect of a peak consummation mysterious phenomenon. It forms something like a barrier. Yi Chen's state of thunder has been isolated. I did not expect Morong Chong to have comprehended his mysterious phenomenon to the consummation. Many martial kings are still incapable of doing so. Indeed, mysterious phenomenon is not closely related to cultivation. It is completely dependent on an individual's talent and comprehension abilities. After losing his state of thunder, Yi Chen is in a bad state. Many of the knowledgeable people in the spectator stands sighed and voiced their opinions. Now that he had a consummation mysterious phenomenon, he might be unrivaled in the martial saint realm. Skipping cultivation realms to kill an inferior grade martial king would be easy. Lu Ruyu grew more worried. Murong Chong was much stronger than she expected. Even if it were her, she would have a difficult time facing this. As Xiao Chen watched the scarlet full moon and Murong Chong, who bathed in red light, he slowly calmed. If Xiao Chen had thought of a way to break the two scarlet saber chi earlier, he would not be in his current situation. Unfortunately, he was not decisive enough at that moment. He did not want to exhaust too much essence. Xiao Chen somewhat reprimanded himself in his heart. However, now was not the time for regret. Before he reached the last step, his confidence could not waver. Since Xiao Chen could not use the state of thunder, the might of the Wukui saber technique was greatly crippled. It could not be used to break out of his predicament. The Lingyun saber technique did not even need to be mentioned. He had to think of another method. That's it. An idea flashed through Xiao Chen's mind. Since he could not use states, he would use his strongest mysterious phenomenon and clash against the other. Thinking of this, Xiao Chen's frown relaxed. He shouted, and the snow-white lunar shadow saber glowed. Flight on wings, moon bright like fire. A golden full moon slowly rose up from behind Xiao Chen, across from the scarlet moon. The faint golden moon shone a gentle glow on the ground. It provided a sharp contrast to the brightly glistening scarlet moon. What's going on? There is a full moon behind Xiao Chen as well, someone up in the spectator stands exclaimed. What is he doing? His mysterious phenomenon clearly has not reached consummation yet. If he is going to pit a mysterious phenomenon against Murong Chong's, he will be at a disadvantage, Lu Sufeng said incredibly anxiously. When Lu Ruyu looked at the rising moon, she suddenly understood Xiao Chen's intentions, and the worry on her face lessened slightly. At the very least, this peerless lunar shadow would not be a fatal threat to Xiao Chen. The golden moon that hung in the sky was as bright as fire. An unwaveringly determined expression flashed across Xiao Chen's face. He shouted in midair, and the full moon rushed straight at Murong Chong. What is he thinking? Using the mysterious phenomenon to crash directly is too crazy. Doing this will result in damaging yourself more than the opponent. Actually, in such a situation, Yi Chen has no other choice. This is the only way to break Murong Chong's mysterious phenomenon. The people in the spectator stands watched as Xiao Chen controlled the bright moon, aiming for the moon behind Murong Chong. They were all astonished. A faint shock appeared on Murong Chong's face, which had been calm all the while. Then, he laughed coldly and said, "Since you want to go head-on, I shall grant you that." Murong Chong shouted, and the scarlet full moon gave off a dazzling light. It contained boundless killing chi as it unhesitatingly headed for the golden full moon Xiao Chen controlled. The golden moon and the scarlet moon moved quickly through the air. Everywhere it passed, fluctuations appeared in space. It looked like it shattered. Bang! Both moons shone brightly, competing with each other. Then, they crashed intensely high in the sky. There was a loud explosion, and the space in the entire arena on the heaven-ascending platform trembled. Even the distant spectator stands trembled as well. The ground would not stop shaking. It was like it had split apart. This caused everyone to feel some terror in their hearts. It's too strong. This is on the same level as a martial king fight, a disciple in the distance exclaimed. Shoo! The two full moons shattered simultaneously. The dark space immediately fractured into pieces. The sunlight that had been missing for quite a while impatiently shone down from the sky again. At first, it was just one strand, then it became two, then three. Immediately, light rapidly extended out. The sky above the arena grew bright once more. Both Xiao Chen and Murong Chong were incredibly pale. The force from the two mysterious phenomenon crashing into each other caused them both significant injuries. However, Murong Chong was in a better state than Xiao Chen. Although the strength Murong Chong's mysterious phenomenon was about the same as Xiao Chen, it had already reached consummation. Hence, it was still slightly stronger. Only after resting for a while did Murong Chong shout and grasp his saber. He transformed into a cool breeze and attacked. However, there was no killing chi from him, there was not even a trace. Then, his body mysteriously disappeared before the audience's eyes. The clear wind chop again. Xiao Chen wiped the blood from the corner of his lips and revealed a cold smile. Actually, Murong Chong had not practiced the clear wind chop to consummation. He had only perfectly merged the great perfection clear wind chop with the state of wind. Hence, he managed to achieve such a result. This move was one of Murong Chong's signature moves. If Xiao Chen had not seen this the first time they met, he might feel helpless. However, after he had perfectly merged the state of thunder into his saber, Xiao Chen did not worry about this move anymore. Wukui transforms to Qi. Xiao Chen shouted, and an ancient divine tree appeared out of nowhere. It turned into strands of purple saber Qi and moved around chaotically. Rumble. Above Xiao Chen's head, thunderclouds formed again, churning continuously. The state of thunder perfectly merged with his saber technique. When Xiao Chen attacked, the thunder rumbled. When Murong Chong, who hid in the clear wind, saw the purple saber Qi flying in the air on a large scale, he frowned slightly. These saber Qi infused with the state of thunder could injure his body hidden in the wind. Now that it covered such a large area, he had no safe way to get near it all. Xiao Chen's spiritual sense extended out and scanned the area relentlessly. Finally, it felt a faint abnormal fluctuation on his 8 o'clock. Qi breaks Wukui. With no hesitation, Xiao Chen immediately executed the third move of the Wukui saber technique when he discovered that blurry figure. Thunder cracked in the sky. The countless purple saber Qi flying in the sky formed a boundless, resplendent saber Qi the instant the thunder crackled. Then, it flew in the direction Xiao Chen felt the abnormality. The instant the thunder crackled, Murong Chong felt danger. However, when he wanted to move, he discovered, the moment the thunder crackled, a resplendent saber Qi was already before him. Its speed actually surpassed the sound barrier in that instant. Regardless of whichever direction he moved in, he could not dodge it. Flickering light passing shadows. In the time for a spark to fly, Murong Chong revealed himself. A bright light exploded in Xiao Chen's vision. This light was so dazzling that the eyes felt a mild pain. This is not good. This is the flickering light passing shadows, quickly close your eyes. When this resplendent light radiated, some of the engrossed cultivators in the spectator stands felt a sharp pain in their eyes, they had gone temporarily blind. Instantly, there were miserable cries. Some of the more alert cultivators had closed their eyes in advance and avoided this. Pu Si. The resplendent saber Qi formed by the Qi breaks Wukui crashed into that light with a boom. The light immediately scattered. Murong Chong split into 9 figures. Each of the figures flickered with a white light. When the white light formed, it was dazzling, it was difficult to differentiate the real from the fake. Roaming Dragon's 9 transformations. Clear wind chop. Xiao Chen squinted, and his body shook once where he was. Then, he turned into 9 cool breezes. Each of the cool breezes carried a figure, rushing at Murong Chong's light figures. Dang! 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 A chaotic battle occurred on the scene. 18 figures fought their own skirmish in the arena. The sounds of the metal clanging, combined with the various figures, made it impossible for the crowd to differentiate the real from the fake. Some of them even started to feel dizzy. Logically speaking, when Xiao Chen merged the roaming dragon's 9 transformations and the clear wind chop, it was slightly stronger than Murong Chong's flickering light passing shadows. Unfortunately, Murong Chong was very familiar with the clear wind chop. The hidden killing intent was ineffective against him. Furthermore, this was the first time Xiao Chen had come in contact with the flickering light passing shadows. In the situation where his vision was obstructed, he suffered a slight disadvantage. I can't carry on like this. I have to execute the killing moves, Xiao Chen thought to himself. Wukui blossoms. Xiao Chen shouted, and suddenly, purple light erupted out from under the feet of the 9 figures. 9 flower buds appeared on the ground and completely enveloped all of Xiao Chen's figures. When Murong Chong's saber struck a flower bud, there was no fluctuation at all. He was not able to stop the flower buds from growing. Flickering light passing shadows, 9 figures combined chop. Murong Chong shouted, and the 9 figures Murong Chong formed flickered with layers of white light and combined. They then transformed into a beam of light and rushed forward. The instant Murong Chong's 9 figures of light merged, the 9 flower buds on the ground merged as well. Boom. When the flower buds merged, they blossomed. The purple flower petals filled the sky. Xiao Chen's feet pushed off the ground, and he moved past the flower petals, rushing at Murong Chong. Purple light from the flower petals fell on Xiao Chen, instantly raising his speed to 2 times the speed of sound. The purple light and the white light both tore through the air. They left behind long trails of shockwaves. They both exchanged blows amidst the flower petals filling the air. Pu Si. The instant they met, they quickly struck out with their sabers. They continued to move in the direction they aimed. After Murong Chong stood firmly, he looked at the blood leaking from his wound on the chest. A look of disbelief overtook his handsome face. How could his speed be faster than mine? In the time for a spark to fly, Xiao Chen's saber had pierced his chest. Furthermore, Murong Chong's saber had only pierced an after-image Xiao Chen left behind. The flower petals that filled the sky all floated towards the wound on Murong Chong's chest, pouring in quickly. Dang! 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 Murong Chong exhibited his state of wind to the limits. He used a flickering saber light to smash all the incoming flower petals into oblivion. Only about 10 flower petals entered the wound. Xiao Chen frowned slightly. Only 10 flower petals flew in. The might of Wukui supporting the heavens would significantly weaken. There was no way the roots could grow. However, there was no point in not firing a knocked arrow. If Xiao Chen hesitated, and Murong Chong forced out the flower petals, all would be for naught. Xiao Chen shouted, Wukui supporting the heavens. Explode. The restlessly churning thunderclouds above immediately gave off a crackle of thunder. The instant thunder crackled, an exploding sound came from Murong Chong's chest. The wound on his chest suddenly exploded, and the shockwaves flung Murong Chong to the ground. How could this be? Murong Chong was actually blasted back. Up until now, since the fight had begun, Xiao Chen, who was not originally favored by the crowd, had not yet collapsed. Xiao Chen had lasted for such a long time and not suffered from too great a disadvantage yet. Now, he even blasted Murong Chong away, sending him flying. This exceeded everybody's expectation. Wukui shakes the heavens. Xiao Chen's aura blazed. While Murong Chong's aura diminished, Xiao Chen took advantage of that moment to leap into the air and execute the Wukui shakes the heavens, the other killing move of the Wukui saber technique. A divine Wukui tree descended down like a mountain and pressed Murong Chong to the ground violently. However, just at this moment, layers of white clouds flew in from the horizon. In a short while, it occupied half the sky. They pushed away about half of the thunderclouds made of Xiao Chen's state of thunder. The state of thunder infused into the Wukui shakes the heavens significantly reduced instantly, its might also significantly reducing. When Murong Chong looked at the Wukui tree and Xiao Chen, he revealed a cold, expressionless smile. Xiao Chen was startled and thought to himself, oh no. Murong Chong's actually cultivated two states, wind and clouds combined. The wind lends strength to the clouds, he's completely suppressed my state of thunder. Murong Chong slowly stood up from the ground. Purple lightning flashed in the clouds above, tearing through the dark arena. Hu! A strong wind blew, and the lighting merged into it. Then, it transformed into a horrifying purple hurricane. Murong Chong used his saber and pointed. The purple hurricane immediately headed for Xiao Chen in the sky and the divine Wukui tree. Bang! 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 The energy of the wind and lightning infused in the berserk purple hurricane. With the character of lightning and the berserk nature of lightning, its might was comparable to a superior grade earth-ranked martial technique. It crashed into the Wukui tree. They were both lightning-attributed martial techniques, and when they crashed into each other, it gave off a horrifying electrical current, moving wildly through the air. Many snakes, made of electricity, swam in the air. They crashed with each other for a total of 5 times. Each time they crashed, they gave off a loud, highly pala sound. The color of Xiao Chen's Wukui tree significantly diminished. The 5th time, Xiao Chen's Wukui tree completely vanished. Now that the Wukui tree no longer obstructed it, the horrifying hurricane containing a berserk chi headed for Xiao Chen. Retreat. After Xiao Chen's state of thunder was suppressed, Xiao Chen did not dare face head-on against it. He could only dodge it. He activated the windwalk shoes and retreated at the speed of sound. Hu Kai. Murong Chong appeared next to the purple hurricane. He was casually drifting about. He possessed both the berserk character of the wind and the etherealness of clouds. When both added together, he became very elusive. Dang! A saber light came from a strange angle and hacked at Xiao Chen. He wielded his saber to try blocking, and a berserk force came from it. The state of thunder infused in his saber was immediately defeated. Retreat again. Borrowing this force, Xiao Chen retreated again. His right hand was numb from the jolt, and he almost could no longer hang on to his saber. Following that, Xiao Chen continued retreating backwards. The opponent's state of wind clouds continuously suppressed the thunderclouds. This carried on for a while. Murong Chong's aura flourished and the situation turned around in a moment. Give up. Although your state of thunder is incredibly pure, it does not stand a chance against my combined state of wind clouds. Murong Chong's voice rang out, and like Murong Chong's body, the direction of the voice's origin was unknown. It seemed to come from all directions. The direction of the voice could not be determined and lingered in the air for a long time. Murong Chong is indeed Murong Chong. He had hidden his skill so deeply. Aside from the great perfection state of wind, I did not expect him to have a great perfection state of cloud as well. The most important thing is that he has merged them perfectly. He lives up to his title as the first-ranked person on the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's wind cloud list. With the state of thunder suppressed, Yi Chen's true combat prowess is simply that of an ordinary medial-grade martial saint. His defeat is just a matter of time. It looks like Murong Chong's undefeatable legend will continue. Within the younger generation, at least within the Zaihe province, no one can defeat him. Even when the scope expands to the entire Great Qin nation, he would still be in the top 3. The situation in the arena was very clear. Murong Chong, who revealed his state of clouds, had completely turned the situation around, eliminating the advantage Xiao Chen had created. Xiao Chen could only passively defend. The crowd was of the opinion that when his state of thunder was completely gone, he would be defeated. A lonely expression appeared on Lu Ruyu's face. She was no longer worried about whether Xiao Chen could win and protect Qingyan Peak. She was simply hoping he could survive. Furthermore, she also wished Xiao Chen would not to lose his edge as a cultivator because of this fight, especially the edge of a bladesman. She was most worried about this. Even though the fight had reached such a state, Xiao Chen's heart remained very calm. It was like a miraculous feeling appeared in his heart. Neither the discussions in the surroundings nor Morong Chong's words affected his heart at all. Xiao Chen's mind was completely clear. He relentlessly thought of ways to break out of the situation. The reason Xiao Chen became so passive was undoubtedly the suppression of his state. This was the first time he had encountered such a situation. Although Xiao Chen knew that the state was very important, he did not expect it to be that important. The Wukui shakes the heavens had actually lost to the opponent's purple hurricane when it lost the support of the strong state. At this moment, even if he executed the sure kill techniques of the Wukui saber techniques, he could achieve the might he expected. It would be difficult to proceed without the support of a state. In the past 7 days, he placed importance on the wrong thing. He should not have spent too much time practicing new martial techniques. Instead, he should have strengthened his own states. Xiao Chen's state was actually not very strong. It was only because of the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation, his state was much purer than other cultivators. The peak small perfection state was the equivalent to the opponent's great perfection. From the moment the fight began, he was able to hold his ground against Morong Chong, who had a higher cultivation realm and did not suffer a huge disadvantage because of this. However, it was not too late for Xiao Chen. Even if he lost today, he had already learned a lot. His future training direction had become clearer. Bang! Bang! As Xiao Chen pondered, his hands did not cease movement. He extended out his spiritual sense and did his best to capture Morong Chong's elusive figure, blocking all the moves sent at him. Up, in the sky, the suppression of Xiao Chen's state of thunder reached its final stages. Only a small patch of thunderclouds struggled bitterly to stay. White clouds, infused with the state of wind cloud, covered the surroundings. The white clouds churned boundlessly, raising Morong Chong's aura to the peak. When he saw Xiao Chen backed into a corner, he said indifferently, "It's time to end this." 3 weather styles, chasing cloud pursuing lightning. Morong Chong shouted, and the horrifying purple hurricane turned into 100 meters long flood dragon. One could see dense dragon scales on the body of the flood dragon as if it were real. Clumps of clouds drifted around in the flood dragon's surroundings. With a shua sound, it flew out of the clouds and spat out a green smoke as it roared at Xiao Chen. The speed of the berserk flood dragon already surpassed the sound barrier. It was extremely close to being 2 times the speed of sound. There was no time for Xiao Chen to think, it was already before Xiao Chen. When the crowd saw the roaring flood dragon rush at Xiao Chen, everyone took a deep breath of cold air. Lu Ruyu could not help but stand from her seat. Her mouth was slightly ajar like she was going to say something. Bang! Bang! The instant the flood dragon swallowed Xiao Chen, there was an intense explosion. An azure dragon circled Xiao Chen's right arm. Although the azure dragon was small, it was an ancient holy beast, it was the real deal. The flood dragon attacking him was merely a fake dragon. How could it be a match for a real dragon? The azure dragon blasted it apart, and it turned into shockwaves scattering in all directions. The azure dragon that broke the chasing cloud pursuing lightning still had not used up all its energy. It let out a mighty dragon roar. The might of a holy beast reverberated in the entire arena. All the cultivators in the spectator stands felt fear from their hearts. This dragon roar actually contained a holy might. Morong Chong frowned and condensed a strong wall of wind to block his front. He intended to block this attack. There was an azure dragon martial spirit hidden in more than 300 acupoints of his body. This was Xiao Chen's true trump card. However, unless Xiao Chen was left with no choice, he would not use this trump card. The azure dragon martial spirit was something that had been lost for 1,000 years. If his status as the azure dragon martial spirit's inheritor spread, he might draw unnecessary attention. However, Murong Chong's move was simply too treacherous. Xiao Chen, with his state suppressed, had no other ways to block or dodge it. Hence, he had no choice but to use this trump card. Otherwise, he might die here. In the sky, the churning white clouds, which had been suppressing Xiao Chen's state of thunder, started to shrink. The holy might of the dragon roar actually forced back Murong Chong's state. Bang! 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 The azure dragon broke through the wall of wind and gave off a piercing sonic boom. When Murong Chong saw that the wind wall could not block the azure dragon, he decisively retreated. The elusive figure flickered through the air. Every step Murong Chong took, he laid down a wall of wind. The azure dragon chased after him tightly, as though it was alive. After chasing for 1,000 meters, because it ran out of energy, it vanished into thin air. That azure dragon actually contained holy might. What is going on? Could his martial spirit be passed down from the ancient times? After Murong Chong landed, he heaved a sigh of relief. However, his heart was full of doubt. Rumble. Just at this moment, the rumbling thunder that had stopped started ringing out again. Xiao Chen's state of thunder had risen back to its peak. Murong Chong's expression changed when he looked at the sky. The sky, originally covered with white clouds with only a tiny patch of dark clouds remaining, was now completely covered with dark clouds. It was time for the deciding move. Xiao Chen did not wish to allow his opponent another opportunity to suppress his state. Wukui breaks the heavens. Xiao Chen shouted, and a loud crash of thunder crackled in the sky. The ancient divine Wukui tree above him quickly grew as the thunder crackled. The instant the Wukui tree completed its growth, a resplendent saber light lit up on the saber blade. It rushed to the sky, quickly growing longer. It was as though it was going to break apart the sky and shatter the earth. Damn it! Murong Chong's face turned sullen. He did not expect Xiao Chen to turn his advantageous position back into an evenly matched situation. However, there was no time for Murong Chong to think. Their resplendent saber light containing the horrifying state of thunder sped towards him. 3 weather styles, parting clouds revealing sky. Murong Chong shouted, and his hair and clothes fluttered about. The strong wind blew around him, and the white clouds in the sky scattered. A resplendent saber light lit up on Murong Chong's saber as well. It contained the state of wind cloud as it headed for Xiao Chen's Wukui breaks the heavens. The 2 saber lights, one white and one purple, extended quickly. After a while, they crashed into each other. Bang! When they crashed, a huge chaotic whirlpool formed. It blasted a deep, bottomless into the ground. Copious amounts of dirt rushed up into the sky from the hole. A visible shockwave extended out in all directions. This blasted away all the dirt on the arena. The ground of the arena cracked into many pieces. Countless huge pieces of dirt flew through the air, and a huge cloud of dust covered the sky. The top 10 meters of the ground was flattened. All of this showed how horrifying those 2 moves were. When Xiao Chen saw the shockwave charging toward him, he shouted. He pierced out with his saber and broke apart the surging attack. His spiritual sense locked onto Murong Chong and he quickly rushed over. The dirt and rocks blocking Xiao Chen's way were all hacked apart. Nothing could stop him from moving forward. Murong Chong's expression was sullen. He sent out a few strands of sharp saber chi and shattered the rocks and shockwaves flying at him. He could feel Xiao Chen's figure in the winds. Murong Chong snorted coldly and pushed his feet off the ground, leaping forward. Shoo! Amidst the strong winds howling and the cloud of dust, the 2 of them saw each other leaping into the air at the same time. Their killing intent clashed mid-air as they attacked without hesitation. Dang! 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 The entire arena was soon covered in lingering electrical and wind cloud energy. There were also huge pieces of dirt flung into the air. Together with the cloud of dust, it all seemed very chaotic. All the spectators in the stands were standing up and squinting, trying to see what was going on more clearly. Why can I not see what is happening to the two of them? I can only hear sounds. I can see a little, but they are simply too fast. I can only see two blurry figures. There is too much dust. The electricity and strong wind is also obstructing my vision. However, their fight is very intense. It's crazy. The cultivators did what they could to help them see better, but there were many weak cultivators who were unable to see what was happening. Only a portion of the core disciples with deeper cultivations were able to faintly catch their movements. Even so, they were unable to completely understand what was going on. Aside from the elders' assembly, only Lu Ruyu was able to see the situation clearly. "Sis, what is the situation like?" Lu Sufeng asked Lu Ruyu anxiously. Lu Ruyu had a complicated expression. Her normally resolute eyes was now filled with confusion and pain. She said in a quavering voice, "Are they both mad? How could it be like this?" Dust flew everywhere, electricity scattered through the air, and strong winds howled. Morong Chong and Xiao Chen were both covered in bloody wounds. Both their clothes were tattered and no longer complete. The two of them were moving around on the ground. Their speeds were very similar. It was difficult for them to dodge their opponent's move while trying to inflict a wound on them. Basically, the situation was, if you injure me, I will immediately deal you a strike in retaliation. Their eyes were red. They ignored all the wounds on their bodies and circulated their essences to the limit. If you are vicious, I will be more vicious than you. It was only a matter of who could last longer. Both sides held their own advantages. Xiao Chen's advantage was a stronger physical body. He could physically endure more than Morong Chong. Morong Chong had a deeper cultivation. He had more essence than Xiao Chen. He had more essence that he could draw on to use. If the two of them continued on without stopping, both of them would end up severely injured and dying together. Pu Si. A bolt of lightning descended and shattered a piece of dirt into countless dust particles. Xiao Chen merged the state of thunder into his saber strike and welcomed Morong Chong's saber strike, which was infused with the state of clouds. The two weapons clashed and there was a piercing metallic clang. The two states clashed together and gave off an intense shockwave. All the dust within 100 meters was instantly cleared out. The two of them each retreated 100 meters. Drops of blood dripped down. Ti-da. Ti-da. Morong Chong said coldly, "One move to decide victory." "Very well." Xiao Chen replied indifferently and grasped his saber tightly. The blood on the saber hilt connected with his hand. It was like the saber was a part of his flesh and blood. They had both fought to the point where they understood that if they kept this up, there would not be any result. The best way to deal with this stalemate was to decide victory with one move. The moment Xiao Chen spoke, Morong Chong started gathering countless strong winds behind him. In that instant, all the dust, dirt, and the scattered electric currents behind him were completely cleared out. Only the purest state of wind remained behind him. The clouds churned in the sky, forming an endless chain. They quickly moved, the sky changed colors, there were rising winds and scudding clouds. Morong Chong's aura also rose quickly. He emitted the aura of a king. Although there was only a trace of this ruler's will, it still filled the air with a boundless might. It extended out to the spectator stands in the surrounding area. When everyone felt his ruler's aura, there was a feeling that came from their hearts, making them want to prostrate themselves in veneration. Xiao Chen was somewhat startled. Morong Chong had actually skipped past the comprehension of states and had touched a trace of an existence higher than that of states. Furthermore, it was the high-ranked ruler's will. Since you are using the ruler's will to suppress me, then I will use the deity's might to suppress you, Xiao Chen thought to himself with a calm expression. Thunder clouds started gathering in the sky continuously. Eventually, they formed into a huge whirlpool of thunder clouds. The whirlpool was several hundreds of meters tall. Each it spun around, a countless amount of lightning attributed spiritual energy poured into it. Lightning tore through the sky in his surroundings, hovering above the arena. A supreme deity's might extended out from it. Dong! 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 A huge army of cavalry came out from the whirlpool. They were howling angrily and shouting. In the end, they merged together and formed a resplendent figure of electrical light. A knight covered in golden electricity and holding a golden spear revealed half his body as he rose from the whirlpool. This was the altered rushing thunder roars. It had merged all the knights together into one and fused a divine might into it, turning it into a true single-target martial technique. The golden spear was pointed at Morong Chong on the ground. The might of the thunder god extended down, trying to suppress the ruler's aura that Morong Chong had raised to his peak. The two formless auras clashed in the air, entangled with each other, causing ripples in the air. Rushing thunder roars, rebuking heaven and earth. The two of them shouted simultaneously. The Golden Knight shifted his spear down and was riding fast golden war horse. He carried a divine might as he pierced through space, charging directly at Morong Chong. The strong wind behind Morong Chong stopped blowing, the clouds above him stopped churning, silence remained. Only the rebuking heaven and earth that could tear through the 9 heavens was launched violently. The resplendent saber light rushed up into the sky, racing towards the golden electric knight and crashing into it. It became a strand of saber chi containing the ruler's will. It was a forward-looking aura that showed disdain for the world, an aura that could move the heavens and earth. However, Xiao Chen's golden knight was formed by divine might. Xiao Chen formed this strand of deity's might, copying the divine might left behind on the silver warship by the sage. Although it was not a true divine might, it was able to easily defeat the ruler's will that Morong Chong had just comprehended. How could a ruler of men surpass a deity in heaven? Unless what Morong Chong comprehended was the divine ruler's will, there was no chance of victory for him. The golden electric knight moved his spear and resplendent golden lightning gathered behind him. He turned into a radiant spear light which crashed into the saber chi Morong Chong infused with the ruler's will. Bang! 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 The air exploded. When the two wills met in the air, they gave off a series of intense explosions. It was like fireworks were released into the calm sky. The entire space turned blurry. Shoo! The Golden Knight broke Morong Chong's saber chi with his spear. Then he rode on his golden war horse and descended from the sky, leaving behind a trail of golden light. Morong Chong's handsome face seemed to have lost its spirit. Just as the speak tip was about to strike his chest, he quickly moved his saber. A thin saber blocked the tip of the golden spear. Boom! Under Xiao Chen's control, the knight exploded. A horrifying energy gathered on the spear tip, causing Morong Chong to vomit a mouthful of blood and blasting him backward. Xiao Chen felt giddy. Aside from exhausting a large amount of essence, this move had also exhausted his spirit. Imitating a strand of divine might had taken nearly all he had. Xiao Chen placed his tongue between his teeth and bit down. He felt a strong pain and his giddiness seemed to clear up. Xiao Chen leapt into the air. He wielded his saber and pierced toward Morong Chong's chest. Morong Chong fell from the sky. Aside from being burnt by electricity, his spirit was being suppressed by the divine might that flowed in. He had completely lost his ability to resist. Xiao Chen moved his wrist slightly and made the saber that was about to pierce through Morong Chong's heart deviate by 5 centimeters. As Morong Chong fell from the air, the pain from his chest helped him recover his senses. At this moment, his hair was messy, blood leaked out from his mouth, and he was covered in wounds everywhere. The two of them had completely used up the might of their states. The wind stopped howling, the clouds stopped churning, the electricity vanished, and the dust landed. At this moment, it was incredibly silent, only the sound of their blood dripping to the ground remained. Morong Chong was actually defeated by Yi Chen. How could this be? Dazzling sunlight shone down from the sky again. When all the spectators saw the scene on the arena, they were all incredibly shocked. Xiao Chen, who was originally not favored by the crowd, actually defeated the first ranker on the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's Wind Cloud list, Morong Chong. Morong Chong looked at the expressionless Xiao Chen, who was not in a much better state than he was. He revealed a bitter smile and muttered, "Why didn't you kill me? I do not have a grudge with you. You saved my life once before. We can call it even now," Xiao Chen replied calmly. Suddenly, a somewhat angry expression appeared on Morong Chong's handsome face. He said, "Your heart is clearly not with Qingyan Peak. Why are you snatching this from me?" Xiao Chen remained calm. There were no fluctuations. He said indifferently, "Are you sure that it is yours? In this world, not everything you think is yours. It is only yours if it has already fallen into your hands." Ka-ca. After Xiao Chen spoke, he pulled out his saber and sheathed it. Immediately blood spurted out from Morong Chong's chest. He wobbled and fell to the ground. In the end, he landed on one knee and stuck his saber into the ground to maintain his balance. Morong Chong's challenge is a failure. The peak master of Qingyan Peak will not change. After Morong Chong fell down, the old man from earlier reappeared and announced the results. The moment the old man spoke, a group of Jade Maiden Peak disciples immediately came out and carried Xiao Chen and Morong Chong away, helping treat their wounds. The crowd all started to discuss the fight in loud voices. There were still many people who could not accept the result. They did not want to believe that Morong Chong would fall. Off in the distance, Mu Heng and Zhang Lai looked at the defeated Morong Chong. There was a lonely look in their eyes. Zhang Lai smiled bitterly and said, "I originally thought that after working hard for more than a month, I would be able to catch up to him. Who knew, he actually pulled even further away from me. Now, it seems like a distant dream. Even Morong Chong is not his match anymore." Mu Heng got up and said, "Don't overthink this. His potential is different from ours. His future accomplishments will be different, as well. However, with someone like that in front of us, someone who we can make our target, our strength will increase faster." That's right. The higher his talent, the more pressure there is on us. As long as I am not lazy or don't lose my confidence, my strength will be improved at a much faster rate. The lonely look in Zhang Li's eyes flashed by, and was replaced by an expression of resolve and confidence. If you take two people, one with 100 points of potential and the other 50 points, as targets, the end results will be very different. Hence, the two of them were very fortunate. They had a rival like Xiao Chen, a person who had 100 points in potential. When Lu Ruyu saw the Jade Maiden Peak disciples carrying the two injured people down, a faint smile appeared on her graceful face. This is probably the best result. 3 days later, in a courtyard on Jade Maiden Peak, Xiao Chen lay peacefully on a reclining chair in the courtyard. There was an incense pot on the stone table beside him. The smoke from the burning incense spiraled upward, and a faint medicinal scent lingered in the courtyard. When inhaled, it let one feel refreshed. One could not help but relax after that. The injuries Xiao Chen incurred in the fight with Morong Chong were more severe than he had originally thought. His opponent's state of wind and state of cloud were infused into those wounds, making them very difficult to heal. There were also meridians that had suffered some damage. The most severe one was the injury incurred by the mysterious phenomena clashing head-on. Back then, Xiao Chen and Morong Chong had both suppressed their internal injuries. After the fight ended, it then acted up 100 times worse than it should have been. With both internal and external injuries, it would be impossible for Xiao Chen to completely recover within a month. However, Xiao Chen had received the best care of Jade Maiden Peak. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion elders were not stingy in letting him use a myriad assortment of medicinal pills. Furthermore, Xiao Chen had a Jade Maiden Peak's elder with a healing martial spirit helping mend his meridians and internal organs personally. After only 3 days, Xiao Chen's injuries were mostly gone. After another 4 days, he should be able to recover back to his peak. All of this is because the strength Xiao Chen displayed had attracted the attention of the upper echelons of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Although Xiao Chen was originally very strong, he was still just a medial grade martial saint. There were many people in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion that had reached medial grade martial saint at his age. When the entire Great Qin nation was taken into perspective, there were even more that had done so. However, the combat prowess Xiao Chen had displayed, in his horrifying state of thunder, forced others to have a whole new level of respect for him. He was not a simple medial grade martial saint. Every sect would pay special attention to their geniuses. They would funnel all sorts of resources toward those geniuses. Naturally, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion was not an exception. It was not strange that they showed so much care for Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen lay on his chair, looking at the clear skies above. Every breath he took consisted of refreshing air. His entire body felt comfortable. This was actually part of the Jade Maiden Peak's special treatment methods. The reclining chair was not made of ordinary wood. Instead, it was made of 1,000-year-old spiritual wood. In other words, if this recovery chair was taken out and ripped into pieces, it would still be able to fetch at least 1,000 medial-grade spirit stones. When one laid on it, the 1,000-year-old spiritual energy contained within it would permeate through the skin, infusing into the blood, flesh, bones, and marrow, circulating to every organ in the cultivator's body. Furthermore, the herbs and incense powder in the incense pots were also made of the spirit herbs picked in the Jade Maiden Peak Gardens according to Xiao Chen's instructions. They were specially used to replenish the spirit. Such relaxing treatment methods allowed Xiao Chen to feel a peace he had never felt before. Since he had returned to Qingyan Peak, he had never relaxed. Now, he had completely calmed down. In the past 3 days, Xiao Chen did not think anything or do anything. He simply laid there quietly. He discovered that there was an improvement to his mental state. Haha, little brother Yi Chen, are you resting? A drawn-out laughter came from outside the courtyard just as Xiao Chen's eyes were shutting. Xiao Chen quickly opened his eyes. He got up and greeted his guest, Elder Tang. Elder Tang was a member of the Elders' Assembly. He was peak martial king and his potential had not dried up yet. With the right conditions and opportunity, he would be able to advance to martial monarch at any time. He could be said to be a true expert. Even 100 Xiao Chens would not be a match for him. There were only 9 elders in the entire Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Under the situation of not having a pavilion master, these elders had a frightening amount of authority. All the major decisions of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion had to go through the Elders' Assembly's approval before they could be passed. Elder Tang had already come to look for Xiao Chen on the first day of his recovery. The purpose of his visit had placed Xiao Chen into a difficult position. Elder Tang had seen Xiao Chen's talent, and had promised him many benefits, wanting to take him on as his personal disciple. Xiao Chen had already rejected him once. The purpose of his visit this time should be the same. When Elder Tang saw Xiao Chen get up, he waved his hand and a gentle force pushed Xiao Chen back down. He laughed. Little brother Yi Chen, you are currently injured. You should dispense with the formalities. Have you thought about that matter I spoke to you about the other day? When Xiao Chen heard this, he smiled bitterly in his heart. It seemed like his rejection back then was taken as him considering it. Otherwise, it could be that Elder Tang was pretending to be a fool. Without waiting for Xiao Chen to reply, Elder Tang continued, Actually, you should consider this seriously. After so many years, I have not taken in any personal disciples. Once you become my disciple and I become a supreme elder in the future, my spot as an elder will be yours. The cultivation resources that an elder receives is much greater than you can imagine. When we cultivate, we use medial grade spirit stones, medicinal pills, all sorts of secret techniques, and some martial techniques exclusive to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. All these could be yours. Xiao Chen replied, Elder Tang, I. Elder Tang interrupted him and continued, I am already aware of the assassination attempt on your life on your way back to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. I have already warned Song Ke. He will not dare to make any more moves against you. The most important thing is that after you become an elder, you can duel Song Ke openly. Hehe. Even if you, accidentally, severely injured Song Ke in the duel, there will not be any problems. That is the right of an elder. What do you think? Tempting, right? I know what you are worried about. You just have to say it and I can help you deal with Lu Ruyu's side. Elder Tang had actively laid out all the benefits. If Xiao Chen were to say he was not tempted at all, he would be lying. However, these conditions were not enough to move him. Xiao Chen said calmly, my apologies, Elder Tang. I really cannot agree. Haha. Ninth Elder is here to poach my student again. Just as Elder Tang was about to continue, there was a melodious laughter in the courtyard. It was Lu Ruyu, walking over leisurely. When Elder Tang saw Lu Ruyu coming, he could not help but show some embarrassment on his face. Regardless of the situation, he was still a senior. He was caught red-handed trying to poach a disciple. Anyone would feel embarrassed at that. Haha, little Ruyu is joking, how could I be poaching your disciple? I am just here to check on little brother Yi Chen. I shall that my leave first. If littler brother Yi Chen has any problems in the future, you can come look for me. When Elder Tang saw Lu Ruyu had already arrived, he laughed the matter off and immediately left. Xiao Chen immediately felt more relaxed. He looked at Lu Ruyu and smiled, good thing you came. Otherwise, I would be placed in a very difficult position. Lu Ruyu sighed inside. She thought of when she first met with Xiao Chen. Until today, she still felt it was funny. However, her judgment was right. He was someone who could re-establish the prestige of Qingyan Peak. Lu Ruyu had no other purpose in coming here, she only came to see Xiao Chen, to check on his injuries, and accompany him to help him pass the time. The two of them chatted for a long time. Most of what they spoke about was their understanding of the martial way. The two of them were now almost equal in strength. The master-disciple relationship was already thin. It was more like a part friend, part teacher kind of relationship. The sky slowly turned dark. When dusk arrived, they stopped talking and Lu Ruyu took her leave. The following few days went by peacefully. The people Xiao Chen knew, Mu Heng, Zhang Lai, Lu Sufeng, and Chu Xinyan, all came to see him. This gave him a warm feeling in his heart. 3 days later at night, Xiao Chen's injuries had completely recovered. His was now back to his peak state. Furthermore, after the fight with Murong Chong and a week of quiet rest, Xiao Chen felt his combat prowess increase significantly, even though there were not much advancement in his cultivation. This was the benefit of a true fight. If a genius did not have a good rival or intense fights, there would never be any significant improvements. Only in a big fight could he find out where he was lacking. After that, he could undergo training to correct those weaknesses. After that, going through another big fight would check and see if his thoughts were correct or not. If such a positive cycle continued, one's strength could be rapidly and stably improved, and truly reach the peak. Hence, every cultivator had to continually set targets for themselves. Sha. Late in the night, Xiao Chen suddenly heard footsteps. Xiao Chen's expression changed. The figure flashed in the air and immediately appeared in the courtyard. When Xiao Chen saw the figure clearly, he was astonished. Morong Chong. Morong Chong was dressed in black, and his saber was hanging at his waist. He walked out of the darkness and over to Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen recovered his calm. He asked doubtfully, "What are you doing here? Are you here to fight me again?" Morong Chong's handsome face remained expressionless. He said indifferently, "There is no need for now. You are right. There are some things that are not yours until you have grasped them in your hands. I clung on too heavily in the past. Now that I have realized this, I have decided to leave this place." Xiao Chen was not surprised at Morong Chong's words. With his cultivation and strength, he has already reached a bottleneck in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. With his potential, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion would not be able to keep him here. It was just a matter of time before he left. Xiao Chen let down his guard and his expression became warmer. He asked, "Where are you intending to go?" Honestly speaking, Xiao Chen did not feel any enmity towards Morong Chong. Although this person did not get along with him, he had a decisive character, and he was open and candid in the way he did things. In fact, Xiao Chen rather appreciated such a character. "I don't know, I'll think about it after I leave the Great Qin Nation. Out of the other nations in the Tianwu continent, the Great Qin Nation is the weakest. If I limit my sight to the Great Qin Nation, I will not accomplish much in the future. I have to leave the Great Qin Nation." Leaving the Great Qin Nation. Xiao Chen agreed with the decision. After the Tianwu dynasty was destroyed, all the spirit veins on the continent were in chaos. Aside from the Great Jin Nation, the density of the other four nations' spiritual energy could not compare to the time of the Tianwu dynasty, not to even mention the ancient era. With the thinning of spiritual energy, a cultivator's cultivation speed lowered. With the same amount of talent and different training environments, there was a great difference in the growth of strength. Furthermore, out of the four nations, the Great Qin Nation's spiritual energy density was the lowest. This was why the Great Qin Nation only had 3 great sects. There were too few spirit veins. Someday, Xiao Chen would leave as well. This world was so broad and wonderful. If he did not explore and look, he would obtain many regrets in life. Xiao Chen had heard that, aside from the Tianwu continent, there were countless islands on the other side of the boundless sea. Each island was the size of a nation. Furthermore, their spirit veins were deep in the sea. They remained intact since the ancient era. One could only imagine how horrifying the geniuses there were. However, there were many things that Xiao Chen had yet to accomplish in the Great Qin Nation. He could leave for now. He had to, at the very least, comprehend the listening to the sword and communicating with it before he could leave. Morong Chong said, "Don't think that you are strongest in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's younger generation after defeating me." Was Morong Chong not the true first ranker? Xiao Chen was filled with doubt as he asked, "What do you mean?" Morong Chong said, "Since the ancient times, the true experts of Heavenly Saber Pavilion have stayed in the Divine Saber Camp. Only after you enter the Divine Saber Camp would the Heavenly Saber Pavilion pass down the true secret techniques to you." Xiao Chen had personally experienced the strength of the Divine Saber Camp. All they had to do was to glare at him, and he felt fear. The martial techniques that followed the way of killing were indeed horrifying. However, this was different now. Xiao Chen had not comprehended any states then. If it were the current Xiao Chen, even if he could not defeat them, he would not lose regarding aura when facing a Divine Saber Camp expert. Then why did you not join the Divine Saber Camp? Given your talent, they should have already extended an invitation to you. Xiao Chen said. Morong Chong's expression did not change. He said in a drawn-out fashion, "I received the invitation 2 years ago. However, I rejected it. You will understand why after you receive the invitation. Aside from the Divine Saber Camp, there is only one person you have to pay attention to in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion." Xiao Chen's interest was piqued. He asked, "Who?" "Leng Liasu." Murong Chong answered indifferently, "The previous pavilion master's daughter, Leng Liasu. There is a secret realm in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. The spirit vein origin of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion runs through there. Only the descendants of the Saber Emperor cultivate there after they advance to Martial Saint. Half a year ago, Leng Liasu advanced to Martial Saint. Her talent is no lower than yours or mine. She also has the bloodline of the Saber Emperor. With the assistance of the spirit vein origin, she will shock the entire Great Qin nation when she emerges. Heavenly Saber Pavilion's secret realm and spirit vein origin." When Xiao Chen heard this, he was startled. He recalled the underground world and the strange space he entered. There was also that prayer mat in the tree hole. The secret realm that Murong Chong mentioned was likely there. No wonder he could not sit on it in the past. Aside from not having sufficient cultivation, he also needed to possess the Saber Emperor's bloodline. Xiao Chen was finally enlightened about it. The spirit vein was something even the Fiend King wanted. Just by thinking about it, one could imagine cultivating on it and how much cultivation speed would improve. "I will take my leave. Although you will be leaving sooner or later, I hope you will spread the name of Qingyan Peak before you leave." Murong Chong cupped his hands and said, "I hope we will meet again in the future." Immediately after he spoke, Murong Chong's figure flashed in the darkness and quickly blended in, completely disappearing from Xiao Chen's vision. The corners of Xiao Chen's lips curled up in an arc. He smiled faintly and said, "What an interesting person." After saying so much, the last thing he said was the most important. He is clearly still unable to let go. Why is he still pretending? Within the 7 days, Xiao Chen had heard about Murong Chong's 3 weather styles. After he had created it, he had gained a deeper understanding of his strength. He was able to combine his states at such a young age, just 20 years old. Then, he created his own martial technique. Such talent in the Tianwu continent, even in the ancient times, was rare. Furthermore, the feeling Xiao Chen got was that the 3 weather styles were not truly completed yet. After the rebuking heaven and earth, there should be at least 5 more moves. After he completed the latter moves, Xiao Chen believed it would be very difficult to defeat him. Even if Murong Chong did not climb to the peak of the martial path, his name would be passed down to the latter generations because of this wind cloud saber technique. Murong Chong had to be considered one of the true bladesmen Yun Kexin mentioned, regardless of the state of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. After the sky grew bright, Xiao Chen went and greeted the Jade Maiden Peak's people before leaving Jade Maiden Peak for Qingyan Peak. Xiao Chen finally returned to the familiar Qingyan Peak. Like before, there were very few signs of human habitation. Along the way, Xiao Chen thought of Murong Chong's words. He sighed to himself, there are indeed too few people in Qingyan Peak. Before I leave, I must do all I can to help Qingyan Peak regain its old prestige. Xiao Chen did not walk very far before seeing a familiar white figure. It was Xiao Bai quickly running towards him. Following behind was Lu Ruyu, Lu Sufeng, Xiao Yang, and Xiao Meng. Xiao Chen smiled gently and lifted Xiao Bai into his embrace. Then he headed for Lu Ruyu and the others. Xiao Meng laughed and said, "Xiao Bai is really fantastic, it knew you were returning from so far away. Even we did not know you would completely recover today." Lu Ruyu's complexion improved with each passing day. At this moment, when Xiao Chen saw her, she had already recovered her charms from the past. After suffering such an injury, her opportunity to advance to Martial King would likely arrive after she completely healed. "Have you completely recovered?" Lu Ruyu asked in a soft voice. Xiao Chen nodded slightly. When Lu Sufeng saw the situation, he laughed and said, "Come, Yi Chen, let's go drinking. Xiao Yang and Xiao Meng will come as well. Let us formally celebrate your victory over Murong Chong." When Xiao Bai heard the word, drinking, it immediately grew restless. It cried out relentlessly, indicating that it wanted to go as well, making everyone laugh. Seeing the smile on everybody's face, Xiao Chen felt a certain warmth in his heart. Although there were very few people on Qingyan Peak, it was impossible to find such harmony in the other peaks. Even if he left Qingyan Peak in the future, he would always treasure these moments in his heart and never forget them. Very well. Let's drink to our heart's content tonight. Xiao Chen collected his thoughts and smiled. On the lone peak of Lingyun mountain range, with no signs of human habitation, Xiao Chen was seated on a rock. Boundless thunder clouds churned in the sky above him. The day after everyone celebrated and got drunk, Xiao Chen started cultivating. After the fight with Murong Chong, he knew where he lacked. Because the might of his state was insufficient, it resulted in his combat prowess dropping to that of an ordinary martial saint. The might of all his moves also dropped. Hence, in the past half-month, he tried to think of ways to strengthen his state, attempting to make up for his shortcomings. Because Xiao Chen cultivated the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation, his state of thunder was much purer than ordinary cultivators. Naturally, its might was also much stronger. A state similarly in small perfection could not hold up against Xiao Chen's state of thunder, they would be easily suppressed. This was the reason he could use a small perfection to hold his ground against Murong Chong's great perfection state. All of this was because of the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation that was equivalent to a heaven-ranked cultivation technique. Likewise, it also made advancing his state to great perfection much more difficult than usual. The initial stage only required the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation to raise to the 5th layer before he could make a breakthrough. Once he successfully broke through, his great perfection state of thunder would be equivalent to the peak great perfection state of others. This was a tremendous benefit. For now, since Xiao Chen could not advance to the great perfection state, he had to think of other ideas. Back when Xiao Chen fought Murong Chong, when the holy might of the Azure Dragon martial spirit unleashed, it suppressed his opponent's state of wind cloud. This gave Xiao Chen a great idea. If he infused the holy might into the state, even without his state breaking through to great perfection, its might would significantly increase. This was a very good method, but putting it into action was extremely difficult. After trying for half a month, he could not infuse in the holy might of the Azure Dragon martial spirit. The holy might could be considered an aura from the ancient holy beast. It was like the auras of humans. The ancient holy beasts definitely had their own unique aura. Although Xiao Chen's proficiency with auras was not at the level of some expects, where they could use a sharp gaze to turn their aura into a blade and cause fear in the opponent, he was still able to release or withdraw it as he pleased. Infusing his own aura into the state was not difficult. However, it was difficult to control the aura of the Azure Dragon martial spirit. In the past, when Xiao Chen's martial spirit was whole, it would have been possible, he just had to draw it out of his dantian. Now, his martial spirit had been shattered and rested in the 300-odd acupoints of his body. He had currently only opened 13 of the 18 acupoints on his right arm. Using the 13 dragon chi together with the aura and striking someone was simple, he just needed to send it out. Turning the dragon chi into the Azure Dragon's aura, refining it, and infusing it into the state was a big problem. Xiao Chen raised his head and glanced at the thunder clouds above him. He slowly stretched his right hand out, and with a thought, the Fengyan acupoint immediately exploded out. An Azure Dragon chi emerged. Laogong acupoint, Daling acupoint, Niguan acupoint. Strands of azure-colored dragon chi flowed out. The 13 acupoints on his right arm opened, and all the dragon chi merged. They formed an azure dragon about 10-odd meters long, circling Xiao Chen's right arm. Dragon scales covered the dragon's body, it looked quite real. Aside from its eyes being relatively expressionless, this azure dragon was hard to distinguish from the real one. Hu Kai! Xiao Chen shouted, and the dragon opened its jaws to roar loudly. Then, it flew up toward the thunder clouds in the sky. The holy might contained in the dragon roar extended out for 1,000 meters around it. Everywhere it passed, the tough grasses bent down, gales whistled, and even the air seemed to become submissive. Under the control of Xiao Chen's spiritual sense, the azure dragon became faintly discernible in the thunder clouds. Bolts of lightning appeared in the clouds. As the dragon and clouds moved together, Xiao Chen could clearly feel the might of his state of thunder becoming stronger. Rumble. Following a few piercing peals of thunder, the aura of the state of thunder rose all the way up, climbing higher and higher. In the end, it reached the same level of might as Murong Chong's combined state of wind cloud. However, the dragon chi would eventually fade away. When the dragon chi was exhausted, the azure dragon would become thin, and the aura of the state of thunder would also drop. When the azure dragon completely disappeared, the state of thunder would instantly return to its original form, reverting back to the might it originally had. Xiao Chen revealed a helpless smile. He waved his hands and scattered his state of thunder. The thunderclouds above him vanished, and only the sound of the strong wind was left. There is a proverb, wind comes from tigers and clouds come from dragons. By combining the dragon with the clouds, it can indeed strengthen my state of thunder. However, such temporary effects are not what I am seeking. Xiao Chen looked into the distance and revealed a pondering expression. He said, "What I want is not temporary effects, but something that can thoroughly strengthen the state of thunder." However, this string of inquiry is correct. The holy might can indeed strengthen the might of the state of thunder. Only, I am unable to find a way to refine the holy might for now. There is no rush, I still have time. I can deal with it slowly, Xiao Chen said to himself. He sat down on the rock again and closed his eyes, slowly entering deep into thought. Xiao Chen ended up sitting there for 7 days. During these 7 days, he did not do anything. He did not even open his eyes. It was like he had entered into a miraculous state of comprehension, trying to solve the problem of refining holy might. A martial saint had no problems with not eating or drinking for a month. The spiritual energy they absorbed could turn into some of the energy the body needed. On this day, the dark clouds in the sky were showing a lot of activity. After a while, there were strong gales and heavy rain. The raindrops fell with a "wah-la-la" sound, completely drenching Xiao Chen in a short while. When Xiao Chen felt the thunder in the sky, he immediately opened his eyes. The purest energy of nature appeared before him. Bolts of lightning flashed across the sky, followed by the deafening crash of thunder. The scene of the bolts of lightning piercing through the air before Xiao Chen's eyes was imprinted into Xiao Chen's mind forever. Suddenly, he was enlightened. Xiao Chen's body trembled and shook off all the water on his body. The falling rain was stopped by a formless barrier and ceased falling on Xiao Chen. This was the final clue to the problem Xiao Chen had been wondering about for half a month. Xiao Chen looked up and laughed loudly. This feeling of a sudden enlightenment was simply too exhilarating. Actually, I have misdirected myself. The Azure Dragon martial spirit has already merged into my body. Yet, I looked at it as though it were a separate entity. Just like the lightning that flashed in the sky, together with the strong wind and heavy rain. They were all a part of the heavenly Taos. They cannot be separated, they are all a part of heaven's will. My aura should already contain the aura of the Azure Dragon martial spirit. It's just that I have only opened 13 acupoints. It is relatively small, hence it does not show. There would also be no way to refine it out. If I want to rely on the strength of my body to refine out the purest Azure Dragon's aura, I would only be able to do so when I open all 361 acupoints in my body. By the time, I would already be a martial monarch. It is unknown how long it will take for that to happen. However, why do I have to refine it? I just have to infuse my own aura into the state. Then, the Azure Dragon's aura would naturally be infused into it. Doing it the moment he thought of it, this was how Xiao Chen had always been. With just a thought, the dark clouds in the sky became even thicker. Thunder roared and there was a clear-cut difference in his surroundings. Xiao Chen released his aura, and it kept rising. Then, it gathered in his surroundings, circling around him. As Xiao Chen's aura rose, a formless shockwave appeared under Xiao Chen, blowing away all the falling rain. Boom. When Xiao Chen's aura was raised to the peak, he howled out. The aura circulating around his body rushed up into the sky. The faint image of an azure dragon could be seen racing up into the sky with his aura. The image of the azure dragon was incredibly blurry. Even when Xiao Chen used his spiritual sense, he could only see a hazy silhouette. When the aura rushed to the sky at Xiao Chen's will, it tried merging into the state. This was Xiao Chen's first attempt at doing so. In the past, he had only tried merging his aura with his saber techniques, but he did not have any experience merging it with his state. Hence, Xiao Chen was somewhat unfamiliar with it. Although saber techniques were very different from states, the general idea of it was similar. After trying for more than an hour, he finally found a clue on how to do it. The formless aura turned into drops of rain and silently merged into the state. As the aura poured in continuously, the thunder from the clouds became even louder. Flashes of lightning fell relentlessly. In an instant, they actually surpassed the natural ones, making them seem dim. Boom. 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 Just at this moment, the surrounding thunder and lightning became extremely fierce. Every lightning bolt was incredibly frightening, like they would tear the sky apart. The following peal of thunder was even more horrifying. The sound was ear-shattering, and even the peak Xiao Chen was seated on could not help but tremble. Strong winds and heavy rains poured down. The sky was very dark. The sky looked like it was about to be pushed down. Xiao Chen's originally focused expression grew startled. This is the heavenly Tao's displaying its might to me. Earlier, when I infused in my aura, I suppressed the might displayed by the heavenly Tao's. Now, it has came back with a stronger retaliation. There was an ancient saying, every time an emperor makes a breakthrough, it is no longer a fight against oneself. The energy in his body was already raised to the peak, there was no more potential to exploit. Instead, it was a fight against the heavens. To compete for Tao's with heaven. To use the heavenly Tao's to strengthen their own body. Although Xiao Chen was far from being comparable to those ancient emperors, not even achieving a 10,000th of what they had, he had accidentally done something that only they could. He had carelessly angered the heavenly Tao's. With his current cultivation realm, he had to stop when he was met with such a situation. Otherwise, he would be smote by the thunders of the heavenly Tao, turning him into ash and leaving him without a complete corpse. However, now was the crucial moment for the merger of aura and state. Xiao Chen was just short of the final step. If he gave it up, all would be for naught. I cannot give up now. Otherwise, I will not get such an opportunity again. A state that has fought with the heavens would be much better than an ordinary state. Xiao Chen revealed a determined expression as he said that sullenly. Boom. 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 There was ear-splitting thunder and the lightning tore up the sky. All this never stopped for even a moment. Then, a few bolts of lightning flashed by Xiao Chen. In the instant of that flash, all the rain water was evaporated, leaving only a dense fog. Remnant electricity crackled in Xiao Chen's surroundings, giving off a non-stop, pili-pila sound. Xiao Chen was astonished. The might of this lightning was extraordinarily strong. If it had struck his body, he would not be able to withstand it. Xiao Chen collected his thoughts and focused on infusing his aura into the state. The clouds above him churned. As his aura was infused into the state, its might began to steadily rise. The instant Xiao Chen's aura was completely infused, the thunder clouds in the sky formed into a huge whirlpool. An extremely thick bolt of lightning streaked through the air. In an instant, the dark sky was lit up as bright as day. It made the lightning created by the heavenly Tao's seem inferior again. Success, Xiao Chen said with a jubilant expression. Just at this moment, the thunder and lightning in the sky suddenly stopped. Xiao Chen's expression changed and he quickly jumped off the summit. Boom! After a moment, a strong bolt of lightning, stronger than any Xiao Chen had seen before, tore across the sky from the horizon. The summit Xiao Chen had been standing on was instantly smashed apart. The massive summit of the 2,000-meter peak was blasted apart. A horrifying purple shockwave surged over and struck Xiao Chen in an instant. Pu Si. Xiao Chen immediately vomited out a mouthful of blood. When he turned back and looked at the previously perfectly good peak, it looked like the top half was smashed apart by the fist of a god. How horrifying. Just the after effects are already somewhat unbearable. I wonder how those ancient emperors challenged the heavenly Taos. Xiao Chen said with lingering fear in his heart, after he wiped off the blood from his lips. Although Xiao Chen had suffered from some internal injuries, he had finally completed merging his aura into the state of thunder. In the future, every time I open up more acupoints, the holy might in my aura will become even stronger. At that time, it would continue to be merged in. There was still a great deal of potential for the might of the state. Xiao Chen had a somewhat excited expression as he executed the gravity spell and descended to the ground slowly. The rain started quickly and passed in a flash. After that horrifying heavenly lightning, the rain slowly became lighter. Shortly after that, the sky became clear. A 7-colored rainbow appeared on the horizon, looking extremely beautiful. The rainbow was of the world's most beautiful natural phenomena. Xiao Chen had only heard about it before, when he was in his original world. He had never seen one before, this was his first time. He could not help but stare at it for a long time. TL thoughts. Seriously, what kind of cave hermit is he for him to have never seen a rainbow before? Ed thought. I imagine seeing one live. He's probably seen all sorts of pictures of one. It is indeed beautiful. However, this is not time to admire the scenery. Xiao Chen withdrew his gaze and examined his surroundings. He found a smooth stone and sat down on it. Then, he started to deal with the remnant electricity in his body. The Lingyun mountain range was incredibly vast. Aside from the 7 main peaks, there were countless other lone peaks and desolate valleys. The place Xiao Chen was at now was one such place, so there was no need to worry about being discovered by others. Ed note. Wait, after stirring up a thunderstorm and attracting a heavenly lightning bolt pointing like an arrow to you from beyond the horizon, there were no worries. After a long time, the energy created by the heavenly thunder was completely cleared out by Xiao Chen. He slowly opened his eyes and said, "Let's test the might of the new state of thunder, first." With a thought from Xiao Chen, churning thunder clouds immediately gathered from all directions. They formed into a layer of clouds roaring with thunder. In an instant, lightning flashed and thunder roared. Ed note. Yeah, you totally couldn't see all this happening from 50+ miles away, nope.